Maybe they should let John Boyega write the next Star Wars movie. Hello, everyone. This is Digital Charcuterie. My name is James. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're new to this channel and you like Star Wars or not, hit that subscribe button. I talk about it here all the time, and I talk about it on the Rebel Scum podcast as well. I love Star Wars. It has its ups, it has its downs, it has it all around, and we do what we do, and we move on because at the end of the day, it's just entertainment. I've been very candid in saying that when I saw The Force Awakens, I went in expecting Kylo Ren to be my favorite character in that movie, but when I left the theater, John Boyega's Finn stole the show for me. I was a huge Finn fan. I thought he was the best part of that movie, not by a little bit, by a landslide. I thought his acting was great. I thought his character was fantastic as well. So then when I went to go see The Last Jedi, we're not going to get into The Last Jedi, but when I went to go see it, I was very disappointed in what Finn had become in that picture. I was just like, oh man, what happened to Finn? There's Finn. And then when J.J. Abrams was said to come back, I was like, okay, well, for all of his flaws, at least Abrams understands Finn. Like, he knows Finn better than anybody. He created this character. Now we can have a proper Finn. And I think there were moments of proper Finn in that movie, but it just, like, half the time is just yelling Rey, and they're very few and far between. If there's even an in between, it might just be one moment. But like, he just never excelled. He never progressed as a character. They try, out of nowhere, he's like, hey, yeah, I have something to tell you. They never tells her anything, and clearly he's Force sensitive. And it's one of those things where you're like, man, this is a character who had so much potential. And Rian Johnson really only liked the Reylo stuff. He was just like, Rey and Kylo, that's all he really wanted to deal with there. And then, by the time we get to The Rise of Skywalker, no one knew up from down half the time. And look, I actually enjoy the movies for what they are. I just think Finn got the shaft big time. And I'm not the only one. Apparently, John Boyega does as well. Let's bring up this article from Variety right here, because it is something else. Let's say that. John Boyega assumed Finn would become a Jedi in Star Wars Trilogy, and Rey would turn against him like Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. John Boyega had a different expectation for his Star Wars arc than what made it on the big screen, as we all did. During an appearance at Fan Expo Boston via Screen Rant, Boyega, who played Stormtrooper turned Rebel soldier Finn in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, said he expected his character to become a Jedi alongside Rey after The Force Awakens. He also thought they were destined to become enemies after both mastered the Force. I think I assumed he was Force sensitive from the Force Awakens script, or at least by the time I got to the end of the Force Awakens script, he said. I thought they were planning dual Jedi. I actually thought that they would be Obi-Wan and Darth Vader to us a bit. That we would turn against each other or something along those lines. Since the debut of his trilogy final installment, 2019's Rise of Skywalker, Boyega hasn't spoken very fondly of his time in a galaxy far, far away. In 2020, he told GQ that Disney marketed his character to be much more important in the franchise than they are, to promote the film's diversity, and then had him pushed to the side when the movies were released. You guys knew what to do with Daisy Ridley. You knew what to do with Adam Driver. Boyega added at the time. But when it came to Kelly Marie Tran, when it came to John Boyega, you knew F all. So what do you want me to say? What do you want me to say is, what they want me to say is I enjoyed being a part of it. It was a great experience. Nah. I'll take the deal when it's a great experience. Despite his criticisms, Boyega remains a massive, massive fan of Star Wars. According to a 2023 interview with Total Film, I was the person on set correcting stuff, Boyega said, like the flying jet troopers that we had in Rise of Skywalker. Poe had been saying they fly now, and I thought they had been flying jet. I thought I had seen flying jet troopers from animated TV series The Clone Wars. I play the games on Battlefront. I have a robust relationship with the whole Star Wars stuff, and he is not the only one, and not the only one to have issues with taking here. Now, okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. But mostly we'll talk about the Rey and Finn stuff. For me, look, and I've said this numerous times, and I never needed Finn to be Force sensitive. He was my Han Solo. He was the Han Solo in this movie for me. That's how I always kind of interpreted his character. I went in there thinking Poe was Leia, Rey was Luke, and Finn was Han. And that's kind of how it played out. So him not having the Force never even occurred to me. Like, it wasn't a thing. But then I did a video on Rebel Scum podcast with Fatty Fan Theories many years ago, and he kind of had this speculation that maybe perhaps Finn was Force sensitive, and he had this whole thesis on how and why he could be, and he actually he made a compelling point. But I was still like, I don't need that in my life. Then of course Last Jedi coming, as I said, I was disappointed in all that stuff. What he's saying here, what Boyega says, he read the script and he assumed that he would be a Jedi. He assumed that's the path they were going down. And I'm not going to lie to you. As much as I didn't need him to be a Force sensitive, the path that he went down is way more compelling than the path that we got. And look, you can complain and argue and you can argue against it all you want. But for me, I think it really is. Because I thought the entire time watching the first two movies, the first two episodes of the sequel trilogy, I thought Rey was destined to have some dark side at least within her. Now, clearly she does, but it's pointless. For me, though, that's what I thought. I always thought that Rey was going to have a little bit of the dark side in her. If you watch the Force Awakens trailer, when she shoots the gun, she has so much angst in her face. There's so much dark side ready to come out that I really, really suspected that they were going to do something like that. Then you see people online complaining that, you can't make Rey a villain, and I don't know what goes on there. So for his point, I actually think that would have been very compelling. Now, the problem is right from the get-go, they handcuffed themselves by saying this was a trilogy of films. So once they said it was a trilogy, you have to do 1, 2, 3. But then you have a trilogy and you don't plot out your trilogy. You don't plot it out. Now, people compare this to George Lucas' original trilogy. And let's just say, he's always like, I have the his little manifest thing. I have everything. Okay, but he didn't plan on 3 movies. He planned on whatever. But then he stopped at 3 for various reasons. Even though he did that, the thing is he was starting something from scratch. So it's a lot easier to start something from scratch and end it at 3 when you want to end it. Then he went back for the prequels, and the prequels was 3 because it had to be 3. Even the prequels, I would argue, would have benefited from more movies, but he was handcuffed to 3. And then for whatever reason, when they did the sequels, they're like, this is going to be 3 because Star Wars only works in 3s. Unless, of course, we do a spin-off or a Ryan Gosling movie or this, or then they change the rules because they can. But for some reason, they had to do 3 movies. It had to be 3 movies. And once they did that, they were handcuffed. And then they handcuffed themselves further by not planning it out. Like the thing with the prequels is, the prequels would have benefited from having more films in that. I love the prequels to death, but they would have benefited from that. That being said, George Lucas knew where it had to end. There was an end, like it had to end here. Right? You can't go further, so it had to end there. Like Andor, you look at a show as brilliant as Andor. Andor, part of the brilliance of Andor is it has to end here. Like we have to get to this spot. Whereas a sequel trilogy, it doesn't have to go anywhere, and it never does. And that's the problem, is it didn't know where it was going. I think that right from the get-go, they needed to say, this is how it's going to end. And then you figure out how you get there. And we can say later, you know what, it would have been better if they fleshed this out, they fleshed that out. That's all fine. But if they would have known where they were going, it would have been way more concrete. And we would have all felt it. And we would have at least had some. I think the people who really, like The Last Jedi, whatever your thoughts of it are, you can't deny that the fan base went like that. And that film, I think, really suffers because of the poor planning or the non-planning. I think if there is a plan, you like, this is happening here, this is happening here, this is where we're going to end, then at least in that movie you would watch and be like, man, that sucked, that this happened and that happened, I didn't agree with this and that, but you have some faith that you know where it's ending up. But that movie kind of proved that there was no faith in what they were doing, because first of all, maybe they shouldn't have let Mark Hamill say anything about his clash with Rian Johnson, which of course was that clash with Rian Johnson about the character, which I think Mark Hamill probably was correct on. And I actually don't have much of an issue with Luke Skywalker in that movie. I hate the freaking Muppet fish that he catches, and the milking the space cow, and the throwing the saber is like Looney Tunes. But for the most part, it makes sense. Like a year before that movie came out on Rebels Come podcast, Brock was like, what if he's like Yoda and he just is miserable and whatever, acts crazy? And that's kind of what he does. So, that wasn't surprising. It almost felt like that was the cop-out, was doing that. Like, and I said that back then, and I kind of feel that way now, where you look at all these requels that they're making and the original cast member is always miserable. It's the easy way to go. That's how you make it easier for them to do it. But I don't feel like his redemption was fully, I don't think they accomplished as much. Some people really love, I mean, the scene's great, but anyway, there's a disconnect there. But what Boyega is saying is, I think those two characters especially might have been more fascinating. And then you can have Kylo Ren. You could still play around with that Reylo aspect to it all. And you could even, you might not want me to talk romance here about Star Wars, but you could have brought in more of the romance in as a love triangle with Finn, Kylo, and Rey dark side, Finn light side, whatever, or maybe Finn, who knows? I think Rey should turn. But like, there's so much there, and Boyega seeing this from the get-go and no one else seeing it, and his point to like where they fly now and no one knowing that there were jet troopers before, it just also shows the ignorance that a lot of I think I do believe now though that this is kind of pushed aside from it. And when I say ignorance, I mean like J.J. Abrams, if you remember when he had the Jakku, he was like, and the bones of Jar Jar Binks are buried over there. Just no respect for the character or for fans of the character. Because look, I love Jar Jar Binks. I'm old and I love Jar Jar Binks when I saw him. But there are kids who grew up with Jar Jar Binks and they absolutely adore that character. And I'm glad that On My Best got his redemption, Mandalorian season 3. Of course, it was season 3. Three that not too many enjoyed, not too many people enjoyed, but I'm glad that happened. But it's frustrating. And when you see what Boyega is saying or where he thought it was going, you wonder why this either wasn't communicated or why nobody else saw this as a possibility. Was it too obvious? For me, again, one last point before I head out, though. For me, though, the marketing with him was a bait and switch, but I think it was an acceptable bait and switch because they wanted to throw you off the path of Rey. I always knew that he wasn't going to be a Jedi going in. Like I said, I always assumed he was the Han, which you should never do, but I assumed he was the Han, and it kind of worked out that way. I guess so I lucked out. But for him, I can understand him feeling slighted by the marketing a little bit. But for me, again, I feel like that was fine. I actually think that marketing was kind of fair on that. They want to throw you off, and he is the one that gets the lightsaber first. He uses it first, and the sound effects not very good in that compared to the originals. But I'll leave that alone. Maybe I should rewatch these movies. I should do a whole rewatch of all 11 live action films, maybe the animated stuff. Maybe I'll do the series, and I'll just do it all chronological. And I'll see you guys in 7 years because that's how long it's going to take for me to watch it. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Do you agree with Boyega? Would you have preferred that, or do you prefer the sequel trilogy that we got? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Hit the like button, subscribe button, and until next time, maybe the master of your own universe.